Hey, before we begin tonight's story, let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at something so old, so silent, that it almost feels like it's watching you back? Not moving, not speaking, just waiting. Close your eyes and imagine the desert under a silver moon. The air is calm. The sand whispers softly beneath the stars. Thousands of years ago, long before our cities, our lights, or even the idea of modern life, humans built something that still stands today. Untouched by time, in a way that feels almost impossible. No machines, no modern tools, no shortcuts. Just human hands, patience, and a belief in something far greater than themselves. And yet, even now, we still don't fully understand it. Not completely, not comfortably. Tonight, we're not just telling a story. We're stepping into a quiet mystery. A place where history doesn't shout, it whispers. Where every stone holds a question, and every shadow feels like it knows more than it's willing to say. So take a deep breath. Let the world slow down and come with me as we gently drift into the ancient silence of the pyramids of Giza. Hey guys, tonight we drift gently into the sands of ancient time. No rush, no loud moments, just a slow walk through history, where the wind moves softly across golden deserts and the past feels strangely quiet. So dim the lights, maybe pull the blanket a little higher. Let your thoughts slow down. Because tonight, we're visiting one of the most famous and quietly mysterious places on Earth, the pyramids of Giza. And we're gonna take our time. Imagine it. A wide desert stretching endlessly under a pale sky. The air is still, warm, dry, almost timeless. And rising from that silence, massive shapes. Geometric, precise, immovable. The pyramids don't just sit there. They exist in a way that feels patient, as if they're not in a hurry to explain anything, which, honestly, is a bit rude, but also very on brand for structures that are over 4,000 years old. Let's begin with the most famous one, the Great Pyramid, officially known as the Pyramid of Khufu. He was a pharaoh of ancient Egypt during what historians call the Old Kingdom, a time when rulers didn't just want power, they wanted eternity, and preferably in stone. Now, Khufu, like many rulers, had a simple goal. He wanted to live forever. Not metaphorically, not remember me kindly in poems. No, he wanted actual, structured, architectural immortality. And his solution? build the largest stone structure the world had ever seen. Because of course he did. The Great Pyramid originally stood about 146 meters tall, which doesn't sound dramatic until you remember this was built without cranes, without modern machines, and without the internet to complain about working conditions. It remained the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. That's not a flex. That's dominance. Now, here's where things get interesting and a little sleepy in a good way. Because building a pyramid is not just stacking rocks, it's organization, planning, precision, and a surprising amount of human effort. Tens of thousands of workers, not slaves in chains, as old stories like to suggest, but laborers, skilled and unskilled, farmers working during flood seasons, craftsmen shaping stone, supervisors making sure everything aligned. Because if you're building something for eternity, slightly crooked is not ideal. The stones themselves are massive, some weighing several tons, cut from quarries, transported across land, sometimes floated along the Nile, lifted, positioned, adjusted, over and over again. It's the kind of project that makes modern construction crews quietly reconsider their career choices. Now, how exactly did they move those stones? Here comes the mystery, and people love this part. Ramps? Possibly. Sledges pulled over wet sand? Very likely. Ingenious engineering methods lost to time? Almost certainly. Aliens? No. We're going to stay grounded tonight. Nice and calm. No sudden extraterrestrial interruptions. Archaeological evidence shows workers used wooden sledges and poured water on sand to reduce friction. It's simple, elegant, and surprisingly effective. Sometimes the best solutions are not dramatic. They're just smart. Which, if we're honest, is slightly disappointing for people hoping for laser beams. Inside the pyramid, things get quieter. Narrow corridors, hidden chambers, carefully aligned passages. Everything designed with purpose. Everything designed for a journey. Because pyramids were not just tombs. They were gateways. At least in belief. Ancient Egyptians believed in the afterlife very seriously. Not casually. Not maybe something happens, but a structured, organized continuation of existence. With rules, with gods, with paperwork in a spiritual sense. One of the key figures in that journey was Osiris, ruler of the underworld, judge of souls, calm, composed, and probably very busy. The pharaoh, after death, would travel to meet Osiris.
His heart would be weighed against a feather. If balanced, he would pass into eternal life. If not, well, things became less pleasant. So naturally, preparation mattered. A lot. Which brings us to mummification. a process both fascinating and slightly unsettling. But we'll keep it gentle. Think of it as preservation. Careful, methodical, designed to keep the body intact for the journey ahead. Because in Egyptian belief, the body mattered. The soul needed a place to return, a home base, and ideally, one that hadn't decayed. So the pyramid became more than a monument. It became a system.
A machine for eternity, protecting the body, guarding treasures, guiding the spirit, and confusing future archaeologists, which it does very well. Now, let's float gently outside again, back into the sunlight. Because the pyramids are not alone. They are part of a larger complex. Temples, causeways, smaller pyramids, and nearby, quietly watching everything, the Great Sphinx of Giza. A massive statue with the body of a lion and the face of a human. Calm, still, slightly mysterious, and possibly thinking, I've seen things. Which it probably has. The Sphinx is believed to represent the pharaoh Khafre, Khufu's successor. Though, like many things in ancient history, there's just enough uncertainty to keep people talking forever. Historians love a good debate, preferably one that lasts centuries. Now here's something quietly fascinating. The pyramids were not isolated achievements. They were part of a long evolution. Earlier pyramids existed.
Smaller, less stable. Some collapsed. Some looked like ambitious attempts that didn't quite go as planned. Trial and error. Even in ancient Egypt. Even at monumental scale. One earlier example is the Step Pyramid, built for Djoser, designed by his architect Imhotep, a man so respected he was later deified, which is not a typical career progression for architects today. From those early designs, the Egyptians refined techniques, angles improved, stone cutting advanced, logistics became smoother, until finally, the pyramids at Giza emerged. Confident, precise, almost perfect. And yet, for all their precision, they still feel mysterious. Not because we know nothing, but because we don't know everything. And that gap, that quiet space between knowledge and wonder, that's where the magic sits. So as we let the desert air settle again, as the sun lowers slowly over the pyramids of Giza, we can almost imagine the workers heading home, the tools set aside, the final stone placed, and a pharaoh somewhere in history satisfied. And in the next part, we'll drift deeper inside the pyramid itself, into hidden chambers, strange alignments, and the quiet question that still lingers after thousands of years. Not just how they were built, but why they were built exactly this way. So stay relaxed. We're just getting started. All right, welcome back. No sudden movements, no loud music,
just a gentle step forward into the interior of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Because from the outside, it's all sharp lines and sunlight. But inside, it's something else entirely. Cooler, darker, quieter, and just a little bit confusing, which honestly feels intentional. Imagine entering through a low, narrow passage. You have to bend slightly. The air feels still, almost preserved. Every sound echoes just a little longer than it should. It's not dramatic. It's deliberate. Like the pyramid is encouraging you to slow down, which is helpful because you weren't getting out quickly anyway. The first passage slopes downward. Simple enough. But then there are choices. And ancient builders loved choices that feel like puzzles. There's an ascending passage, hidden entrances, carefully angled corridors, all aligned with surprising precision. Because of course they are. This is ancient Egypt. Precision was basically a personality trait. Now, let's gently float upward into one of the most famous interior spaces, the Grand Gallery. It's long, it's tall, it rises upward at a steep angle, and it feels unexpectedly elegant. Not ornate, not decorated, but impressive in a quiet, architectural way. Like someone spent a lot of time thinking, how do we make this feel important without saying anything? And then nailed it. The walls are made of massive stone blocks, stacked with incredible accuracy. No cement, no modern adhesives, just weight. And geometry doing all the work. It's the kind of engineering that makes you pause and think, okay, they really knew what they were doing. Now, at the end of this passage, we reach the king's chamber. And here, things become even calmer. The room is simple, rectangular, made of red granite. No decorations, no paintings, no inscriptions covering every surface. Just clean lines and silence. Which is slightly surprising for a royal tomb. You'd expect a bit more decoration. Maybe a mural, a few dramatic hieroglyphs. But no. Minimalism, apparently, was in style for eternity. In the center sits a stone sarcophagus. Empty now, but once meant to hold the body of Khufu, the man who decided that final resting place should also double as architectural statement. Now here's where things get quietly fascinating. The chamber includes narrow shafts, often called air shafts, but they don't exactly function like normal ventilation. They point outward at specific angles. Some align with stars.
Specifically, stars connected to Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. Because in ancient Egyptian thought, the pharaoh wasn't just staying in a tomb. He was traveling, ascending, joining the cosmos, possibly becoming one with the eternal stars, which is a very ambitious post-retirement plan. Some researchers believe these shafts symbolically guided the soul towards specific constellations. Others think they had practical roles during construction. And some simply say, we're not entirely sure, which, honestly, is one of the most honest answers in archaeology. Now, let's gently move down again, toward another chamber, the so-called Queen's Chamber. Despite the name, it probably wasn't used for a queen. Historians love naming things slightly incorrectly and then keeping the name forever. Tradition is powerful like that. This chamber sits lower within the pyramid. It has its own shafts, its own quiet symmetry, and its own unanswered questions. Because unlike modern buildings, pyramids were not built with instruction manuals left behind. Very inconsiderate. Then there's the lowest chamber, cut into the bedrock, rough, unfinished, almost abandoned. It feels different, less refined, less complete, as if the builders started there and then changed their minds, or plans evolved, or perhaps something else happened. We don't fully know. And again, the pyramid is fine with that. It's not here to explain itself. Now, let's pause for a moment and consider the bigger picture. All these chambers, all these passages, all this effort for one person. That's the part that often feels slightly surreal. An entire workforce, years of labor, complex planning, all directed toward ensuring that one individual transitions properly into the afterlife. But of course, that individual wasn't just anyone. He was Pharaoh, a divine ruler, a bridge between the human world and the gods, at least in belief. And belief, as history shows, is a very powerful motivator. Now, something else quietly interesting, the alignment of the pyramid. The Great Pyramid is aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal directions: north, south, east, west. The accuracy is astonishing, even by modern standards, which raises the question, how? The Egyptians likely used observations of stars, careful measurements, repetition, trial and error, patience, lots of patience. No GPS, no laser tools, just human observation and consistency, which somehow makes it more impressive. And then there's the shape itself, the pyramid form, wide base, narrow peak, stable, balanced, timeless. It's not just visually striking, it's structurally strong. The weight distributes downward evenly, which is probably why it's still standing, while many later structures are not. Durability was clearly part of the design brief. Now let's drift back out, slowly, into the open air again.
Because after spending time inside, the outside feels brighter, wider, more breathable. The desert stretches endlessly. The sky feels larger, and the pyramid stands unchanged, still, silent, unbothered by time. And here's the gentle realization. We've walked through its corridors. We've looked at its chambers. We've considered its design. And yet, we still don't fully understand everything. Not the exact construction methods, not every symbolic detail, not every decision. But maybe that's the point. Maybe the pyramid was never meant to be completely understood. Maybe it was meant to last, to endure, to exist long enough that people, thousands of years later, would still ask questions, still wonder, still lie awake at night thinking, how did they do that? And in the next part, we'll float even further outward, beyond Egypt, beyond the desert, to explore how pyramids appear in other parts of the world, and why humans, across different cultures, kept building structures that reach quietly toward the sky. So stay relaxed. We're still moving, slowly, through history. All right, let's drift a little farther tonight. We're going to step away from the desert of Egypt for a moment. Not too far, just enough to notice something quietly interesting. Because pyramids are not unique to one place, which is slightly surprising, and also a little bit suspicious if you're the type who enjoys a good late-night conspiracy. But we'll keep things calm. No wild theories. Just a gentle observation. Humans, across different continents, kept building big, pointy structures over and over again. Let's float across the ocean, slowly, and arrive in Mexico. Here, rising from jungles and ancient cities, we find structures that look familiar. Different style, different culture, but unmistakably pyramid-shaped. Take the famous Pyramid of the Sun. It's massive, broad, layered like steps, built by a civilization that existed long before the Aztecs arrived and wondered, who built this? Which is always a fun moment in history, when even ancient people look at something and say, yeah, we didn't do that. Now, the design here is different from Egypt. These pyramids are stepped, terraced, built to be climbed, often used for ceremonies, rituals, public gatherings. Instead of smooth outer casing stones, you get platforms, levels, stairs that lead upward, which, honestly, feels more inviting. Still exhausting, but inviting.
And unlike the Egyptian pyramids, which were primarily tombs, Mesoamerican pyramids were often active religious centers. Temples stood on top. Priests climbed them. Rituals took place under open skies. So instead of being sealed, they were alive.
Now, let's gently shift south to Peru. Because yes, there too. Pyramids. Though they sometimes look more like large stepped platforms or mounds. Constructed by cultures like the Corral civilization, one of the oldest in the Americas. Again, no connection to Egypt. No shared blueprints. No emails exchanged. Just similar ideas appearing in different places. So naturally, people ask the big question. Why? Why do humans, separated by oceans and thousands of years, build pyramids? The calm answer is actually quite simple and slightly less mysterious than some might hope. Pyramids are stable. Very stable. If you stack material upward, gravity becomes your main concern. You want something that won't collapse, something that distributes weight evenly. And the pyramid shape does that beautifully. Wide base, narrow top, strong foundation, minimal risk. It's not just symbolic, it's practical, which is a little less romantic, but still impressive. Now, that doesn't mean there's no symbolism, because there absolutely is. Across cultures, height often represents something important. Connection to the sky, to the divine, to something beyond the ordinary. So building upward, step by step, stone by stone, becomes more than construction. It becomes meaning. In Egypt, the pyramid may have symbolized a ramp or stairway to the heavens, a path for the pharaoh's soul. In Mesoamerica, pyramids connected people to gods through ritual, through movement, through physical ascent. Different beliefs, different practices, same general idea. Up is important. Now, let's gently circle back to pyramids of Giza. Because even though pyramids appear around the world, the ones in Egypt still feel different. Partly because of their age, over 4,500 years. That's a lot of sunsets. Partly because of their precision, their alignment, their scale. And partly because they were among the first truly monumental stone structures. They set a kind of standard, a very high one. And here's something quietly interesting. Even within Egypt, pyramid building didn't last forever. After a certain point, they stopped. Later pharaohs chose different types of tombs, hidden ones, cut into rock, like those in the Valley of the Kings. Why? Well, pyramids were very visible, very obvious, and very tempting. Especially if you were a tomb robber looking for treasure. So over time, secrecy became more important than size. Which is a bit of a shift from "look at my eternal monument" to "please don't find my stuff." History evolves like that. Practical needs quietly change grand traditions. Now, as we let all of this settle, there's a soft realization that begins to form. The mystery of the pyramids isn't just about how they were built, or even why. It's about what they say about us as humans, our desire to last, to be remembered, to reach upward, to leave something behind that outlives us, whether in stone or stories or quiet memories. And in the next part, we'll slow things down even more. We'll look at the people behind the pyramids, the workers, the daily life, the routines, the very human side of something that often feels almost unreal. Because behind every massive stone was a person, probably tired, possibly sweaty, definitely wondering when lunch was. So stay relaxed. We're just gently continuing the journey. All right, let's slow down even more tonight. We've looked at the scale, the shape, the mystery. Now, let's gently shift our focus away from pharaohs, away from grand designs, and toward the people who actually built the pyramids of Giza. Because behind every massive stone, there was a human being, and that part is often overlooked. Imagine waking up before sunrise. The air is still cool, the desert not yet harsh. You stretch, maybe a little stiff, because yesterday you moved stones, and today you will do the same. You are not a king, not a priest, not even particularly important in the grand story. But without you, there is no pyramid. For a long time, people believed these workers were slaves, forced into labor, driven by cruelty. It's a dramatic image, and historically, not quite accurate. Archaeological discoveries suggest something different. Workers' villages, organized teams, food supplies, medical care, even burial sites that show respect. These were laborers, skilled and unskilled, working in rotations. Often farmers during the Nile's flood season, when their fields were underwater anyway. So instead of idle time, they built. It was still hard work. Let's not romanticize that. Moving multi-ton stones is not a relaxing hobby, even with teamwork, even with clever techniques. But there's a difference between forced suffering and organized, purposeful labor. And the pyramid workers seem to fall more into the second category. Now, let's imagine the rhythm of their day. Groups working together, pulling sledges, chanting in unison to keep time. Because rhythm makes heavy work
slightly less terrible. Water poured onto sand, reducing friction, making movement smoother. It's simple physics, but also a small mercy. Supervisors watching, measuring, checking alignment. Because if your stone is slightly off, it becomes someone else's problem later, and no one wants that. There were specialists too: stone cutters, engineers, architects, people who understood angles, weight, and structure. One of the earliest known architects in history was Imhotep. A real person, highly respected, later remembered almost like a legend. He worked earlier than Giza, but his ideas helped shape pyramid construction. And honestly, getting remembered thousands of years later for architecture is quite an achievement. Most modern buildings don't even last 50 years without complaints. Now, let's talk about food. Because if you're moving stones all day, you're going to need energy. Workers were fed bread, beer, onions, garlic. Simple, but effective. There's something oddly comforting about that. Thousands of years ago, people were still saying, "Did you eat? Here, have some bread." Some things never change. Now, imagine the social side of this. Living in a workers' village, sleeping in shared spaces, talking at night, complaining about supervisors, laughing about small things. Because even in the shadow of something as massive as a pyramid, life continues in very human ways. Friendships, arguments, inside jokes. Hey, remember when that stone slipped and nearly crushed the ramp? Yeah, good times. History often forgets these voices, but they were there, quietly building something that would outlast all of them. And here's a gentle thought. Most of the people who built the pyramids never saw the final result completed. Construction took decades, longer than many lifetimes. So you work, day after day, year after year, knowing that the finished monument is something you may never stand back and admire. That's a strange kind of dedication. Or perhaps acceptance. Now, let's pause and consider something subtle. Why did they do it? Not just because they were told. Not just because it was organized. But because they believed in it. In ancient Egypt, the pharaoh was not just a ruler. He was part of the divine order, a connection between the people and the gods. So building the pyramid was not just labor. It was participation in something larger, something meaningful. Whether we agree with that belief or not, it mattered to them. And belief can make even the heaviest work feel purposeful. Now let's gently return to the present. We stand at a distance, looking at the Great Pyramid of Giza, taking photos, asking questions,
wondering how it was done. And it's easy to think of it as a mystery, a puzzle, an ancient achievement. But it's also a human story of effort, of organization, of belief, of thousands of ordinary people doing extraordinary work, one stone at a time. And in the next part, we'll let the story drift into something even softer. The legacy, the myths, the modern fascination, and why, after all this time, we still can't quite look away from these silent structures. So stay calm, stay comfortable. We're almost at the quiet end of the journey. All right, let's ease into the final stretch. No rush, just a slow exhale as we sit once more beneath the vast sky, looking at the pyramids of Giza. They haven't moved. They haven't changed much. And somehow, that's exactly why they feel so powerful. Over time, the pyramids became more than history. They became stories, legends, questions people carry with them into the night. Ancient travelers stood where modern tourists stand now. They looked up and wondered the same thing. How? Later historians tried to explain. Scholars debated. Writers imagined. And slowly, the pyramids moved from reality into myth. Some said they held hidden knowledge, lost wisdom, secrets of the universe. Because when something survives for thousands of years, people assume it must know something. Others imagined hidden chambers, secret passageways, lost treasures still waiting to be discovered. Because humans are very good at imagining things that haven't been found yet. And to be fair, sometimes they're right. Hidden spaces have been discovered inside the Great Pyramid of Giza even in recent years, using modern technology. Scans, sensors, careful exploration. Nothing dramatic. No glowing artifacts. No secret libraries. Just more empty space, which is somehow both exciting and slightly anticlimactic. Because the real mystery isn't always what's hidden. It's what's already there, quietly existing. Now, let's gently talk about something people often bring up. The idea that the pyramids were built with lost or advanced technology. It's a tempting thought, because the structures are so precise, so large, so enduring. But when we look closely, we see human solutions. Simple tools, careful planning, time. Lots and lots of time. And patience. The kind of patience that modern life doesn't always encourage. No shortcuts. No instant results. Just steady progress. Day after day. Stone after stone. And maybe that's part of what makes the pyramids feel so distant,
not just in time, but in mindset. We live in a world of speed, quick answers, fast results. The pyramids come from a world where things were built slowly, intentionally, with the expectation that they would outlast everyone involved. Now let's shift gently to the present. People visit from all over the world, standing at the base of the pyramids, taking photos, looking up, shielding their eyes from the sun. And for a moment, they feel small. Not in a bad way, just aware. Aware of time, of history, of how long the world has been here before them. And that feeling is rare, because most places don't carry that kind of weight, that kind of silence. Nearby, the Great Sphinx of Giza continues to watch, calm, unmoving, possibly judging us a little, but mostly just being there. It has seen empires rise, fall, change, repeat. And through all of that, the pyramids remain. Wind passes over them. Sand shifts around them. Time moves forward. But they stay. And maybe that's the quiet secret. Not hidden chambers. Not lost technology. Not something waiting to be revealed. But something already obvious. The pyramids are not just about the past. They're about endurance, about what humans choose to build when they want something to last forever. And maybe, in a softer way, they remind us of something personal, that even small efforts, repeated over time, can create something meaningful, not as large as a pyramid, not made of stone, but something that lasts, in memory, in impact, in quiet ways. So as the sun sets once more over the pyramids of Giza, the light softens, the shadows grow longer, and the desert becomes still again. We leave the story where we found it, in silence, in calm, in wonder. No final answer, no grand reveal, just a quiet understanding that some mysteries don't need to be solved. They just need to be experienced. Sleep well. The pyramids will still be there tomorrow. And now, as this quiet journey comes to an end, let everything slow down. There's nothing left to figure out tonight. No more questions to answer. No more places to go. Just rest. Imagine the soft desert wind
moving gently around the pyramids of Giza. The sky above, wide and endless, filled with quiet stars. Everything still, everything calm. Let your thoughts drift, the same way the sand drifts across the desert. No pressure to hold on to anything. No need to think too deeply. Just let go. Your day is done. Your mind can rest now. Your body can relax. And just like those ancient stones that have stood peacefully for thousands of years, you are allowed to be still. So close your eyes, take a slow, gentle breath, and let sleep come naturally. I'll be here with another quiet story whenever you need it. Good night.